Go ahead.
Being that you guys had a pretty dominant performance on defense in Seattle, how do you build on that against a more high-powered offense when it comes to the Kansas City Chiefs coming here this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, I think it wasn't perfect. We were happy with a lot of the things we did as far as how we wanted to play against them, and the guys really stepped up. A lot of guys played, and even the young guys stepped up. So you always want to progress and keep building. So tough opponent, obviously, really good players, really good coaching, and just our next step, and hopefully we can piggyback off last week.
Kansas City might have the best interior offensive line in the league. How do you feel about that matchup?
You're right, really good. Center, both guards, really, really tough. There's always going to be tough matchups. They have really good receivers, even though a few are down. They just have tons of weapons everywhere. So it's tough, and we got to step up. And we've had guys get banged up, and I feel like our guys have met that challenge of the classic next man up mentality. And it's good to see young guys step up, whether they're rookies or second year, third year, or just new guys to our system. It's been fun to see guys challenge and step up.
What makes Andy Reid so difficult to face, particularly off a bye week? Is he presenting things that he hasn't shown on film yet, or does he get a feel for what you're doing?
Yeah, I think it's whenever you have more time, it's always a race every week, and I think when you have more time, you can look at more stuff, but sometimes that can hurt people. I think he's really good about deciphering how he wants to utilize this extra time and the information that he gets. And plus, he's been around the league so long, I think he knows how to do that, and he knows how to attack schemes, and he's one of the best ever.
Both and Floyd have each faced Mahomes a few times, so how can that experience benefit them going into this one?
I mean, however many times you've gone against Mahomes, it's going to be hard. I think it helps a little bit because you understand, the preparation for him, but he's so difficult because he doesn't always do the same thing. The arm angle's never the same. He doesn't have to set his feet. Sometimes he does. He's really good at reading the defense and, kind of throwing it to where he needs to. So it helps you understand who he is, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're just going to automatically have success because he's so good.
Mahomes has been a little bit more prone to throwing interceptions this year. How can you guys capitalize on that? Just
if we get an op, catch it. If it touches your hands or you have a chance to go take your shot, you got to make the most of it, really regardless of who it is. He is elite, one of the best, but yeah, he'll take some chances here, and we just got to make it happen when we get it.
Having a guy like Worthy with his speed sort of changed them from what you saw last year.
They have guys that can run, but he is an elite speed guy. I feel like they've always had guys that have that top end speed that can take the top off and run all those routes. I know they use them in different ways as well, but speed's always tough. You always want fast guys in football. You want guys that can play as well. So anyone that can threaten you down the field, you have to be aware.
You guys are in pads today, so you can flood up guys. One guy that's not in the no-contact jersey is Ricky Pearsall. So I'm wondering, what do you tell your guys in terms of how you make contact with Ricky to kind of reintroduce him to football?
I don't think it's a real. If he needed a blue jersey, Kyle and the medical staff would do that. I trust those guys, and I don't think we treat him any different. I don't think he would want to. I'm just excited to see him out there. Just really cool.
Nick, there's been 42 missed tackles in the last 3 weeks, and Campbell's missed I think 8 or 9 of them. Mm-hmm. Obviously you're going with him. Why is he a better option than Winters or Graham?
We like both of them. I mean, they've both been getting snaps, talking about D and Devondre. He's got so much experience. He brings a calmness. He understands the scheme, and, he's been doing a really good job, and we've also been rotating D in there as well, so just like both of them.
How much has Renardo Green improved since training camp, and how much has your confidence in him grown?
It's continued to grow. I think with him you always felt like he could do it, and then when he goes out and does do it, it just keeps growing, and it's kind of grown from the off season on because, we've kind of progressed him as far as, immediately teaching him nickel, and he's gotten better at that, then going back to corner and then being able to do both. I know he hasn't played nickel, but he's trained. And then going out and performing in the game because we've kind of been rotating again, much like with Camp and D, him and Ike, getting those snaps. And to see him step in when Mooney couldn't go was awesome. Because all those guys all 3 of our corners, Demo and Ike and RG, were just fired up to go play and just compete regardless of who they went against, and I think they all stepped up.
That's great. What have you seen from Malik Mustafa?
Oh, same thing. He's just competitive kid that they both love football, so they love to compete. They like to learn, and then they apply that. So I think with him, it's stunk he only had a certain amount of snaps last week because he got banged up, but he's just a tough kid who cuts it loose. And then having getting the pick on that first drive was huge. So having the playmaking ability, not just when you see him be physical in the run game, to go make a play on a pick was awesome.
I was talking to Evan Anderson yesterday. He's telling me he can dunk, which is pretty amazing. I mean, the guy's 6'2".
Why you say that?
He's 325 pounds.
Hey, that's impressive.
But what do you think of him? Because he's getting an opportunity that he didn't expect to get, and he seems to be playing pretty well.
No, he's been great. I'm not surprised. He is explosive, like the way he gets out of his stance and stuff. He's one of those guys that's really progressed. I mean, even from training camp, but just seeing him jump the last couple of weeks. He got an opportunity to play, and he stepped in and did a nice job, and then progressed and got better the next week. So just, how far can he take it? We're excited.
Mahomes over these last couple of years has been a lot more willing to just take what's there, whether it's short throws down the field. What are the challenges and maybe the challenges of like sustained drives that are short plays like that?
How violent you finish and how well you tackle. I think that's the most important thing. If they're going to check it down, are they checking it down in 5? So what's happening after that? Is he getting hit? Are we punching it out? Are we hitting him with, 2-3 guys on a compression tackle? What's the stack monster? How are our D-line coming out? Are they hitting him too? So what do those look like when they're throwing it is what matters. Whether it's an RPO or perimeter screen, if they're going to catch it at 5 and get 8 or 9, that's not good.
So many guys are, and you got a couple of them on your team that have been really good at punching the ball out. How do you balance the going for the punch out with making the tackle?
I've always been a huge advocate of, I think you can punch pretty much every time you tackle. There's sometimes you can't, but your mind, you got to set your mind on being able to punch and tackle. Never sacrifice the tackle for the punch, but I think you can almost every time bring a punch with a tackle as long as you're – a lot of people punch and they don't bring their feet or they don't bring their body. So I think the key with that is don't let your feet die and keep bringing your body with the punch and wrap with the other hand. But the ball is everything, and everyone knows the turnover margin is so important, and why not go for it every single time you can.
Brandon's been running the turnover meetings now that you used to run. How's he been doing?
He's been great. He's doing a great job. Yeah, he had it today. It was good.
Does he put any special twist to it?
Yeah, he makes it fun too. He's done a really good job. He'll put some basketball clips in there. I think today he showed Kobe covering LeBron in the All-Star game. It was cool. All right.
This week, you guys get Chris Jones, and you play Donald, and man, you've been in the league a long time. You've seen Reggie White and Bruce Smith and all these great players. Where is this guy in the greats of the great at the interior spot? Is this guy at the top of the list?
Yep, he's not top. He's in that group. He's a guy you have to count for in every play, some way, shape, or form. If you can, you got to do the best job you can to. They have ways to isolate him one-on-one. They put him in all different positions. Their defense coordinator Steve Spagnuolo does a great job of putting these guys in different places. This defense has evolved so much, and Chris Jones is such an integral piece of it. And I think he's playing his best football. This is probably the best I've seen him play. It's short sample size. I thought he had a great year last year, but I think he is starting off to having an MVP kind of season. He's really playing well. Run game, pass game, everything he does. There's a thought behind everything he does. Really a challenging player to play. It's everybody has different things. This guy's a monster. He's a big guy. And then at the same time, he's got athleticism. He can move. He's got quickness. He's got all the things that it takes to be a dominant defensive lineman, which obviously he is. So we have our hands full. We have our hands full every week. Believe me, we have our hands full every week. This one, I just keep waking up with 95, and that's what my everyday is like that. So I'm hoping to get over that dream this weekend.
To kind of follow up on that with Chris Jones, obviously Pooney's played pretty well throughout this season, but how do you think he will kind of respond to this challenge of having to go up against?
Check with me after the game on Sunday. I'll let you know. I think he's going to definitely have his hands full. Pooney's done an excellent job for us, but he's got every week it's a different challenge, and every week when the new guys show up, he's got something else he's got to work on, and now it's another guy, and the better players, now have more of a book on him. You know, they've seen 4 or 5, 6 games on Dom, and now all of a sudden some things have shown up. So will Chris use that? How many times will they put him over there to get the one-on-ones with them? I know every great rusher tries to, excuse me, they find a place to put their guy that they think the best matchup is so he can best exploit. I mean, you don't want, not that Chris Jones and Trent, it's a great matchup. It's fun to watch, and Chris Jones will have a chance to beat Trent. But in the same sense, if you could put him somewhere else, you might want to put him there, and how strategically they place him in their defense. You know, to say I have confidence in Dom, I want to see more how Dom reacts as the game goes on, and then next week it follows up. Because to say that he's going to go in there and dominate, or you know, he's going to have his hands full. I know he will. So
to the Super Bowl, and obviously there were a few plays that there were key protection breakdowns. And obviously, this is, aside from Jones, it's a physical front, especially in the middle. How much do you go back to those plays in that film preparing for this week, or is that separate?
No, yeah, we used every game. Started off with the Super Bowl, and then the games from this season was my starting point because we kind of prepped for that game last year with all the games previous. So I had all the cut-ups from that done. I took the Super Bowl and worked from there. And so obviously everything we did in that game comes under scrutiny and research because we hadn't played them since 22. So we played them in then, and I go back to 19 and watch that Super Bowl as well. Look at anything I can see of teams similar to us, the way they attack us, and we made mistakes. I told guys on the sideline, and this is my fault. I didn't prep them well. I really didn't prep them well enough. I could have done a better job, especially the 2 protections that we messed up with both Banks early in the game and then with Spence later in the game. That was really, we hadn't prepped that protection for as much as they gave us with that, and it kind of come that way. It had been a protection we added a few years ago, and it hadn't quite been completely vetted through, and we've cleaned it up, but it's still a challenge with what we do with it. It always has been this style of protection. So that being said, and then we chose a time to not play our best game up front. The Chiefs did a great job. All credit to them. They won the game. There's no looking back. As Trent said earlier, that ship sailed. There's a whole new season, whole new game, whole new teams. It always is a new year. But at the same sense, we didn't play our best game. So I hope we can put our best foot forward this week and play a little bit better game up front and do a good job. They're a great front, great defense, well coordinated. They present a lot of issues and problems, which they presented to us, and we didn't pass the test as well as we could have. I'm hoping the guys are a little more prepared.
I'd like to kind of dial up the blitz even more, like in the fourth quarter relative to the other 3 quarters. What kind of challenges that just in terms of kind of making sure your guys are staying sharp, at the end of the game when fatigue or whatever might be setting in?
Yeah, it's always, I think every protection we've talked about it. We know the strengths and weaknesses. Like I said, that protection, we knew the strengths and weaknesses, but it hadn't been played out as much. And so everything, so it has been played out now. There's other things that's my job is to always think ahead, okay? We're going to call this in the red zone. We're going to call this on 3rd down. We had one last week. We got a pressure on our quarterback. There was a 3rd down call that I blame myself. I hadn't emphasized it enough that Colton could have helped Jake on one. It was a 3rd and 2 pass where the 3 technique got up the field, and Colton could have helped. And we talked about it. It had never come up, and I've talked about it ever since I've been the line coach here, that, hey, when we get this play and this call and it happens to be a wider da-da-da-da-da, this is what you need to do, and I could have emphasized a little bit more. And so those things have to be, because it's those critical times. It's like, I used to joke all the time. We used to have these discussions, as coaches, we'd talk and we'd say, yeah, well, but gosh, it might just happen once. I'm like, great. Okay, you guys all go home and go to bed. What if that once is the 3rd and 3 in the 4th quarter of the Super Bowl, in overtime of the Super Bowl, and it happens that one time, we're like, crap, they got us. Wait a minute. You don't know when that one time is going to be, so you have to make sure you go through it all. Now, in the same sense, you can't practice 12 hours a day, and you don't get the reps at everything every week. You just can't do it. So, that's why you hope over time guys have experience. They learn, they listen, they take good notes, and when it comes up in the game, bam, it's there. And that one last week and others in the past, I blame myself first and foremost. I will, to say I could have emphasized it more. The same sense, you're a professional football player. I say it once. Should you get it, right? I don't know. That's the trade-off. As a coach, I got to make sure they get it. Just because they're a pro football player and get paid, there's still a lot going through that brain. And they have the physical challenge of what was brought up earlier. I got to block Chris Jones. Okay, coach had all these nice coaching points in a nice air-conditioned room, and watching tape. I can take all the notes and I can talk about it. We have a walkthrough, and Ben Barch is playing Chris Jones. Great, I got no problems today. But then all of a sudden it's live bullets, and all of a sudden, gee, many Christmas, I gotta block this guy and remember all these coaching points, and it's going 100 miles an hour. And granted, that's what they get paid to do, but it's not easy, and that's why it's my job to alleviate as many of those things as I can to make sure they're able to succeed.
Play action passes difficult to execute against defenses that are putting 6 defenders on the line of scrimmage?
Well, I put it this way: a lot of play action passes, you're able to help. You're selling a run where you're able to actually help each other, right? So you can come off the ball like a run, and there's people to help and protect you. When all of a sudden you have 5 or 6 man blocks, how aggressive can you really be? When all of a sudden, if I go after a guy like a run, he just jumps inside or jumps outside, I have to temper what I do a little bit more. So while the ball action may still show, how aggressive can I really be? We had one a couple weeks ago. We called one that was a play that we against 2 weeks ago, Arizona. It might have been last week too. I don't remember the week. It was 2nd and 18. And we called a play, sort of a play action pass kind of play. And I'm always like, hey, at your own risk, bro, because it's like 2nd and 18, I'm not sure they're buying the run. It's like the 3 technique last week that beat Jake up the field that Colton probably could have helped him on. Like I say, my fault, not Colton's, is that they're probably not playing the run on 3rd and 2 to 3. Even though we've run the run, they're going to honor it as much on 3rd and 2 to 3. Same thing with the play action. So situationally, 5 or 6 on the line of scrimmage, you're not having helps, where so many of our play action passes, there's help inside. So you can come off the ball a little bit harder. And then when you don't have the help, you come off the ball a little less. So all of a sudden you take 5 or 6 guys not able to come off the ball as hard. It's harder to sell the runs. Does that make sense? Okay.
You guys ran it really well against 8-man fronts this week, I thought. That play where Garendo had the 76-yard run, Pooney had two guys out on that play. You were really excited about Garendo, and we saw it this week. What's the key to run blocking for a guy like that who's a little raw but great speed?
Well, it's like it was when we had 31 here before. I talked about Raheem, and obviously he's not that's fast. We've talked about this. The guy, if you give the guy the space, if you give the guy the crease, he's going to hit it, and he has a chance to really to make things happen. The challenge is the same challenge. You're still trying to create the same amount of space for JP, for Christian, for everything else. What's exciting about 31 is you keep seeing it. You say, remember I think I told you when we played the Rams and Banks missed a play that you'd have loved to see it come out, because I think Isaac could have split the safeties and gone a long way, but Banks missed the blocks. We didn't get to see it. This was one where he happened to create a nice seam for the kid, and the safety took a bad angle, which sometimes they take bad angles. They're faster. That's the exciting thing. When we used to call Mike McDaniel had a term for Raheem. He said he's the angle assassin, meaning that you think there's an angle. The proper angle for most safeties to take out a runner is this, but with Raheem, he was the assassin. He would beat those angles because you couldn't take the same angle with Raheem because he was so fast. Guys with a little more speed, it changes those angles. So those guys are used to fitting a run a certain way, and it just all of a sudden you can't. A great story, John Lynch, right? He tells the story I might have told before. Randy Moss is one of his first games. John Tampa 2. Let's say they're supposed to line it 12 yards deep. I don't know what their depth was as a safety, but playing Randy, all of a sudden John looked up in the 3rd and 4th quarter, and Herm Edwards looking at him and say, "Hey, bro, you're 20 yards deep here. Why are you 20 yards deep?" Well, because Randy, you'd stay at 12, and all of a sudden you have to play the deep half on Randy. He's past you. So all of a sudden that changed the whole dynamic of how he played, and he found himself at 20, deeper than he should be. John tells the story better than me, but the same thing with this. So that's the excitement of playing with a guy like that, because boy, when you can get through there, all of a sudden it might be just a little bit different than they're used to, and that's that change of pace back you talk about.
Did he really slide, or was he caught and tripped?
I'm saying slide. I saw a change in his gait. I thought he did. Now, he said he turned the sideline. Now, I didn't say slide. I said score. My hand's going like this. Score, 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 score. Okay? I know slide's right. You can argue that with our analytics department. But I saw the kid's gait change. Now, maybe the refrigerator jumped on his back and slowed down after 75 yards or so. I looked like he was trying to slide down. He says he was too. I'm believing him.
Told me to ask you, what is God's play?
Okay, well, he says it's power. Marty Schottenheimer, in his football life story, says it's God's play is power. Now, I like outside zone. I was a power guy my whole career until I came to work for Mike and Kyle Shanahan in Washington. We ran a ton of power and with Mike Allstott and Workdone and guys like that in Tampa. And power's a great play. I love power. We still run some power in our offense. He calls it God's play. Power and counter, kind of the same thing, but yeah, that's what he calls it.
Best coaching staff in the league.
Who's that?
Do you view this Kansas City staff as as a cut above? Is this the elite staff? in your
Well,
mind?
I mean, Andy's been doing it for so long, does a great job on offense. I don't study their offense very much, and I think Andy Heck, their offensive line coach, is outstanding. Steve Spagnuolo, as I said, is an outstanding defense coordinator, one of the best, and it's just evolved through time how much better. I liken him to like Kyle, like what Kyle did when he was with the Texans and what we did with Washington, what he did every step of the way to where he is today with our offense. You see them on defense. It's the same way he's evolved. It's not just the same old defense. It's evolved, and there's a lot of moving pieces to it. And I think Joe Cullen, their defensive line coach, and I think all the D-line coaches, I respect all the guys we go against, but Joe Cullen is one of the best. I noticed it when he was in Baltimore. I'm like, who is, because it wasn't just the starters that played well. He had these second-tier guys that were like, holy cow, this guy's a freaking stud, man. He's doing everything you could, and actually could go look at the second tier players that weren't as talented maybe, that you saw the technique he was trying to coach because they did everything exactly right. Well, that's a coach, man. He's getting his guys to do everything right. I think Joe Cullen and Spags, those are two guys that stand out to me on that side, and then they take the O-line coach with Andy on the other side. They have an outstanding, I'm not going to crown them, and now I'm glad to know that was the most important question. The rest of them I'll discard from here on out, but that one right there, definitely, that's a very, very good staff.
Thanks, Coach.
Appreciate you guys.